Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to CG Reaction. This is Iran attacked ships instead of Hormuz. Then the US Navy responded like this. So this is going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
Iran just used the one piece of leverage that it has. Control over the Strait of Hormuz has been the Iranian regime's trump card, and it's just played that card in devastating fashion. What Iran did was unforgivable. 3 big ships were
Yeah, he used the word trump card deliberately there.
attacked, but Iran made a massive mistake. The US revenge for Iran's Hormuz hubris was instant and brutal. Let's start with Iran's strikes and come to the revenge later. On May 7th, The Guardian reported that a trio of merchant ships had been struck in and around the Strait of Hormuz. One of these carriers absorbed the bulk of the strike, as the Thai-registered Mayuri Nari was hit by what has been reported as 2 projectiles of unknown origin. That's a polite way of saying that Iran attacked the bulk carrier in a strike that left the ship in flames soon after it departed from a port in the United Arab Emirates. This strike, which occurred about 11 nautical miles north of Amman, signaled an end to a 4-day lull in Iran's attacks against commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The Mayuri Nari's crew were forced to evacuate their ship in the wake of the attack. So far, it looks like there were no casualties. The Guardian reports that 20 crew members were evacuated immediately by the Omani Navy, with 3 more staying behind to serve as a skeleton crew on the stricken ship as they awaited a later rescue. That attack seemed to spark a small spate of follow-ups as more unknown projectiles struck ships in and around the strait. The Japanese container ship One Majesty was hit with a projectile as it sailed about 45 kilometers or 28 miles northwest of Ras Al Khaimah, which is in the United Arab Emirates. This attack was far less damaging than the one against the Mayuri Nari, as the Japanese vessel sustained only minor damage above the waterline. Still, it's a clear signal of intent from Iran that it's going to follow through on its threats to attack any commercial vessel that attempts.
Yeah, these are significant things because the cargo could be worth billions. Houthis attacked one of the cargoes last year, I guess, and it contained a lot of iPhones, right? And I think it was billions worth of iPhones that basically got damaged.
To pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Another bulk carrier, the Star Gwyneth, flying under the flag of the Marshall Islands, was also struck about 50 kilometers or 30 miles northwest of Dubai. Damage was caused to the hull in the ship's hold area while it was at anchor, but no injuries were reported. This is Iran's wartime strategy. It's the only one that the country has because the Strait of Hormuz provides Iran with the sole piece of leverage that it has in its war with the US and Israel. These 3 attacks add to at least 11 more that have occurred in the Strait of Hormuz or nearby regions since the war began, Reuters reports, and Iran has made it very clear what its goal is with these strikes. Get ready for oil to be $200 a barrel because the oil price depends on regional security, which you have destabilized, blared Ibrahim Zolfikari, who is a spokesperson for what is left of the Iranian military command. Indeed, the price of a barrel of oil had previously shot up to $120, though it stabilized to somewhere in the $90 range with hopes that the Iran war could end sometime soon. That end may not come as soon as many would like. We'll get into why later.
Okay, what is the barrel price right now? Because it's back to 20 million barrels flow of that, right? Which is what it was before the war. So I think the barrel prices should be low.
Iran may have another motivation for attacking these civilian tankers, as Max Afterburner points out in his assessment of what just happened in the Strait. This screams Iranian IRGC payback, Afterburner declares when speaking about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which essentially acts as a second military for Iran's regime. The reason that revenge is being meted out is for the non-stop pounding that they've been getting from the US military. That may be the case. But really, this is all about Iran leaning more heavily into the one thing that it might be able to use to convince the US and Israel to end their massive bombing campaigns on the Iranian mainland.
I like how that tornado is saying, right? If the tornado doesn't look like it's moving, it's coming towards you, can apply to a B-2 bomber as well. If it looks like it's not moving, it's coming towards you.
Of the two, the ideal scenario, perhaps for the US as much as Iran, is that these strikes will lead to peace negotiations prompted by the US wanting to avoid pressure that comes with essentially closing a waterway that around 20% of the world's seaborne oil passes through each year. The other scenario is that the chaos continues, leading to the price rises that Iran claims will happen as commercial ships avoid the strait entirely and have to take far longer and costlier routes to their destinations. This is what we mean when we call the Strait of Hormuz Iran's only piece of leverage. The US doesn't have to worry about a nuclear weapons program that hasn't reached maturity, Forbes argues. The real concern, and the one that Iran is trying to create right now, is that Iran pulls the strategic lever on the Strait of Hormuz by making it impassable for an extended period of time. Iran might even be able to follow through. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is about 21 miles wide. That may sound spacious, but tanker traffic does not spread across the entire waterway, Forbes says. It adds that shipping traffic through the strait doesn't have free rein to sail wherever it wants. The Strait of Hormuz is divided roughly into shipping lanes, one in and one out, that are each about 2 miles wide and separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. That takes what is already a small 21-mile choke point and narrows it down to just 6 miles that Iran's
What is this cargo ship carrying its own building? What is that?
fast boats can patrol and its drones can strike. The March 11th trio of strikes proves that Iran can indeed cause major problems in the Strait of Hormuz. But the US has a little something to say about that. Iran's attacks on commercial ships couldn't go unanswered, and the revenge that the US unleashed was fast, furious, and sent a brutal message to Iran's military command that it will be hit hard every time it tries to pull its nonsense in the Strait of Hormuz. US President Donald Trump warned.
So right now, it's a pause. But yeah, Iran just said yesterday that nothing moves through. So I think pause gonna be over soon. And last time it was like, what, 11 straight days of bombing? Yeah, it's gonna begin again after that. But it's just like right now, it's just like feels like a rinse and repeat, right? No side is tiring down. Why would America tire down? They have way too many resources. But somehow Iran is not tiring down. Like, how much destruction before you realize this is too much?
That this revenge was coming. He took to Truth Social to tell Iran's regime that it will be wise not to try to turn the Strait of Hormuz into a death trap for commercial vehicles. Trump focused on Iran's second strategy of laying mines, even dangled a carrot on the end of the stick by telling Iran's regime that it will be a giant step in the right direction if Iran pulls back on mines and stops striking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran didn't listen. And its defiance cost the country in a major way. But before we go deeper into that, this is a quick reminder that you are watching The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit that button. So despite the warning, Iran struck anyway. It may not have taken out any commercial vessels with mines, but it did use projectiles, likely aerial drones such as Shahids, to attack commercial shipping. And
yeah, again today, they attacked a UAE's cargo ship with drones. Shahid 136 probably is the most basic, cheap thing they can use, and it is what they used, right? Because you can literally hide those in houses with people. So even if US destroys a lot of depots and missile sites, you still will have Shahid 136. On top of that, small group of people in some house, slightly bigger houses, can build them, because that's how easy it is to build Shahid 136. So all the people say like, okay, why do they still have weapons? Because it's very easy to build this. They could just build it. Not at mass production, but just enough to be a problem.
And true to Trump's words, the US meted out a punishment that left Iran's military regime reeling. How? Well, the US destroyed 16 of Iran's mine-laying ships, along with several other naval vessels, in a devastating series of attacks. That news was confirmed by US Central Command, with the first 10 being reported on by Trump himself a mere 13 minutes after he delivered his initial warning to Iran. I'm pleased to report that within the last few hours, we have hit and completely destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats and/or ships, with more to follow, Trump said. We told you that the revenge was instant. We're assuming that as soon as the US received word about the first of the 3 strikes we've discussed, the finger that was already on the trigger was pulled. Iran will be feeling that pain as its plan to use mines to control the Strait of Hormuz has fallen apart in a heartbeat. The inactive vessels that Trump mentioned were likely to soon become active.
What, why is this so much in the corner? Like, that's literally touching the edge. It's like, obviously, all of them touching, but this is like way too in the corner, isn't it? I don't know, man. All right. Yeah, Iran's ability to not lay mines at the level that they wanted literally hampered them. How much like strength projection they can do, basically.
Active. Now they're gone, along with 6 more since Trump made his announcement. And if Iran thought that this was the worst of it all, then it had another thing coming. The US 1,500 targets, that doesn't mean it rattled off 5,500 bombs and missiles. The amount of munitions used will be even higher, especially when it comes to Iran's hardened targets such as underground bunkers, which need to be hit several times over before they're taken out of the picture. What we're seeing here is an overwhelming amount of precision strikes being carried out by the US, and hundreds of these strikes were added to the list after Iran's regime failed to heed Trump's warning about the Strait of Hormuz. Losing its mine-laying ships was already bad enough for Iran, but to have the US hitting it all over, practically on the hour, every hour, has shown Iran's regime that for every commercial ship that it manages to damage with a drone, the US will utterly destroy key military nodes, vessels, and anything else that its missiles and bombs can target inside Iran.
This is true, by the way, because last 11 days of bombing triggered because Iran bombed Saudi Arabia, Qatar's like 2-3 ships, which were like kind of like a last straw when it comes to Trump. Trump got that news like, okay, these ships got damage, and he just flipped out. After that, like 11 days of bombing, and every time somebody asked Trump about Iran, he was just angry, right? So yeah, this is so true. Like right now, UAE's ship got hit. Who knows what's gonna get hit next? And Trump's gonna get pissed off again. Another 11 days of bombing.
And by anything else, we literally mean that the US can pick and choose its targets because Iran isn't able to stop any of this. The one thing that the US has to be wary of is that 5,500 targets struck and far more munitions than that used.
Never been a war where somebody can say that I can literally pick and choose whatever I want because my enemy can't even see me, let alone defend against me.
Isn't sustainable over the long term. Preston Stewart raises this point in his analysis of Iran's Strait of Hormuz strikes and the immense retaliation that came from the US. He notes that 5,500 targets struck would average out to about 500 targets per day, and that could be a problem in the long term. These cannot all be done with standoff munitions, Stewart says when talking about maintaining a 500 per day strike rate. He adds, "We have a lot of Tomahawks, we do have a lot of ATACMS, we do have a lot of long-range cruise missiles. We do not have enough to be carrying out 500 attacks a day, every day for the foreseeable future. The odds are that the US is switching toward using..."
I mean, that's true if you're going to talk about Tomahawk and very high-end missiles like that. But if you're going to use dumb bombs, just glide bombs, yeah, you can do that.
Guided bombs in its
Which is what USA did. Like a lot of B-52s, B-1s dropped a lot of glide bombs.
Campaign of aerial devastation against Iran, which is how it's going to sustain what we're seeing right now in Iran for as long as is needed to achieve the goal of forcing Iran to give up its leverage in the Strait of Hormuz. That sustainment is going to be needed. Even though the US has made Iran pay for what it did to the 3 commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, it would be foolish to believe that the fighting over this waterway is all over. The strait is just too important, as we mentioned earlier when telling you about Iran's strategy of forcing the price of oil up to $200 per barrel. There is a real threat here, as the Strauss Center for International Security and Law points out, because about 17 million barrels transit through this one strait every single day, accounting for about 20 to 30% of the entire world's oil consumption.
Right now, it's 20 million that's passing. So it's like, there is no issue if that's the case.
The Gulf region in particular relies on the Strait of Hormuz because pipeline options are limited. All told, 88% of the oil that leaves the Persian Gulf goes by the way of the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran isn't going to be giving up its ability to control passage through the strait without a real fight. America's challenge is that this fight isn't going to be coming from Iran's large warships, or even the mine-laying vessels that the US destroyed. Instead, Iran is going to be leaning on the other option it has, which we touched on a moment ago, fast attack boats. Even as its warships sink and its mine-laying strategy gets sent the way of the dodo, Iran still has a lot of fast attack boats that it can use to zip toward a target, launch a drone or rocket, and then get out of Dodge before anybody can do anything about them.
Yeah, Nissan Skylines of the waterways. Yeah, they didn't do shit with that, let's be honest. Not a single one of them touched a US boat, because that's not how it works. You can't just strapping a gun to a pigeon and thinking that will do something in warfare. No.
Afterburner highlights this, noting that these fast boats don't even have to be crewed in some cases. Iran has access to small and rapid vessels that it can pack with explosives and control remotely, somewhat similar to the seaborne drones that Ukraine has used to such devastating effect against Russia's warships in the Black Sea. That's the big worry for the US right now as it shifts.
I was surprised that Iran had that. I saw the video about that yesterday or something like that. Like they literally can, target a cargo ship and blow it up. Basically fill it with TNT or something. Unmanned boat, like, okay, Iran can do that, that's something.
It's into a new phase of its Strait of Hormuz strategy after taking out the mine layers. And these fast boats are having an impact. Even though the US followed through on Trump's threats of retaliation, it still hasn't been able to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for commercial shipping. At least not anything like the volume of shipping that would indicate that commercial vessel owners believe that they will be able to move their ships through without the possibility of them being struck. A pair of ships, namely the Sefasi Vishnu and the Zafira Swiri, both flying under the flag of the Marshall Islands, were struck in attacks that make the three we covered earlier pale in comparison. Both were hit at about 1:30 a.m. local time off the coast of Iraq, again by unknown projectiles, and both burst into flames. Authorities managed to rescue 38 crew members, though sadly one person died, per Iraqi news outlets. These fast boats are an ever-present threat in the Strait of Hormuz. The question now is, how is the US going to be able to handle them from here on out?
Yeah, so seriously, like US needs to think about this. I don't know if you can do something right now, but maybe for the future, right? Like you have certain like systems like Locust and Meteor, the shotgun microwave system that just shoots down all the drones. You can create some system that disables fast boats, fry up their engine electronics, something. Because I don't know, man, there must be some electronics on those boats, right? It can't be just old style engine. I mean, it could be, but like, I don't know, man. There has to be something that fries, like some kind of like a microwave, like how basically your microwave oven is, who's like set to like water frequency, right? Create a microwave emitter that is set to like fuel frequency, like petrol or whatever that runs on, right? And just like shoot them. That would just burn up the fuel, blow up the engine, right? I don't know, man. Some system like that, I don't know.
Maintaining its rate of attacks on the Iranian mainland using guided bombs, as Stewart suggested the US is doing, will play a large role. This is a pressure versus pressure game, and the US can deliver a lot more pressure than Iran. However, the US also has a duty to keep the ships that want to transit the Strait of Hormuz safe. Afterburner suggests that this could be achieved through the deployment of fighter jets that are no longer needed in Iran itself now that the campaign has switched to aerial bombing. If we're going to control the Strait of Hormuz...
Look, man, one thing's for damn sure. Using Tomahawk here is like using an RPG against a guy with a shield and a sword. Use a gun. You already have an edge. You don't need an RPG. That's overkill.
You've got to have fighters up and airborne, just like this. Afterburner says of images of fighter jets just being released by US Central Command. He adds, F-22s, F-18s, F-35, F-16s. Have as many of those up there as
He's German, Bodenheimer.
possible. He references footage of an F-16 destroying Shahid drones in Dubai as an example of why this would work. Presumably the plan would be to maintain constant sorties over the Strait of Hormuz, perhaps with some tankers being accompanied by fighter jets, so that anything that attempts to attack by air or sea
And F-35 is huge compared to F-18.
will be taken out before it manages to strike. It's a solution, a costly one, given that America's jets and the weapons they fire are more expensive than the drones that Iran is using. However, the US may get some support in this endeavor very soon.
There is a missile that's very cheaper, like $25,000 or something, which is cheaper than the drones. 8 ammunition is cheaper, so there are ways. But yeah. Right, well, there you go. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.